Hey everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about finding the slope between any 2 points. First, let's talk about what slope actually is. So, slope is defined as the incline that a line has, and we usually read any graph like a book from left to right. So, today we're going to be talking about finding the slope between 2 points, and then these are a few examples of what slope actually means. So, when you have a negative slope, if we read this first graph from left to right, as you can see from the blue line, it looks like the little guy with the motorcycle is going downhill, or it looks like a bike. So it's going downhill. That means it is a negative slope from left to right. From left to right, excuse me. The second graph says when you have a positive slope, it means that the line is going up, or in other words, the person is going uphill from left to right. In this case, he's huffing and puffing trying to get up that hill. If we have a slope or a line with a slope of 0, that means that the line is perfectly horizontal, meaning that it is neither going up nor downhill. It is actually a smooth ride. And the last example in which we have a situation in which a line is perfectly up and down, imagine this guy trying to ride the side of a wall, right? That's a vertical line, basically like you're trying to ride a bike in a wall. That's not going to work out very well. This person looks like it's falling to their doom. So in that case, we have a slope that is considered undefined because there is no rise over run. There you go. There you have it. So that's the definition of slope in a nutshell. Um, Now, in order for us to find slope between 2 points, all we have to do is first graph each one of these points. Just a reminder, the first number, which is the x coordinate, is also corresponding to the x-axis, and the x-axis either goes to the left or to the right side, right? So the left side would be the negative numbers, and the right side would be the positive numbers. The y-coordinate, which is the second number, corresponds to the vertical line in the graph, and that means it's either going up or down. Down if it's negative, and then up if it's positive. So our first point, -3, -4, would mean to the left 3, and then down 4. So starting in the middle, we're always going to start in the origin. We go to the left 3, 1, 2, 3, and then down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. First number is always left, right. Second number is always up, down. Okay. Second number, the x coordinate for this would be 3, and the y coordinate for this would be 1. So in this case, we're going to be going to the right 3 spaces, but we're also going to be going up 1 space. So starting in the middle, every single time we go to the right 3, 1, 2, 3, and then up 1. So there you go. These are my 2 points corresponding to the first 2 coordinates. All I have to do now to find my slope is figure out what is my rise and what is my run between these 2 points. So for example, I can draw a line between these 2 points, right? If I connect these 2 points with a line. So that corresponds to a line or a linear equation. But if we just want to find the slope, we just need to figure out how much do we go up and how much do we go over. Because slope, by definition, is considered rise over run. So a lot of you guys already know that formula. So m, or slope, is also known as the rise over the run. And all that is just fancy math lingo for you to remember. How much do you go up or down, and then how much do you go over? So I don't like using rise because it just assumes that you're going up. It can be going up or down, and then the bottom number can be going over to the right, whichever number it actually says. Okay, so now that we have that, what is the slope of this line? Well, between these 2 points, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. So then my slope, or m, is equal to 5 over 6. Notice that the 5 is positive because I went upwards. So therefore, it's positive 5 over positive 6. Up 5 to the right 6. Okay, let's do another example. So same idea here. We want to find the slope between the points -1, 4, and then 4, 0. So the first number corresponds to the x-axis. Second number corresponds to the y. Same for these 2 points. Remember that the x-axis is the horizontal line, left and right, and then the y-axis is the vertical line, up and down. Okay, so now if we're looking at the first point will be graphed at -1, 4. That means we go to the left 1, and then we go up 4. So starting in the middle, we're going to go to the left 1 and then up 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. This will be the coordinate of the first point here. If we graph the second one, it is actually the first number corresponds to either the left or the right side. Left negative, right positive. So this will be to the right 4 spaces. And then the second number corresponds to up or down. Since we don't have a negative or a positive, the number 0 is basically doesn't need a sign because you don't really go anywhere. So we stay where it is. So we neither go up or down. This, I would say we stay where it is. So to graph that, we go to the right four spaces, starting in the origin or the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and then we're going to stay right there at that specific coordinate. So we neither go up or down. We stay where we are. All right. So that being said, if we want to find the slope, you could always draw a line between these 2 points because eventually we're going to get around to doing that. But if you just want to find the slope between these 2 lines, it is what is the rise and what is the run, meaning how much did we go up or down, how much did we go over. If we count the number of squares, in this case we go down 1, 2, 3, 4 squares, and then we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the question is, did we go up or down to go from left to right? As you can see, this is a negative slope because we're going downhill, right? If you could imagine the little person riding the bike, they would be riding the bike in this case downhill, right? So therefore, we're going to have a negative slope. Therefore, that forward should be actually a negative 4. So as I write my final answer, it should be down 4 over 5 or negative 4 over 5 from left to right every single time. Okay, like you're reading a book. Okay, so that's just basically on graphing points and finding the slope between 2 points. The only thing that I will go over is what happens if they don't give us a graph or if the numbers are way too big to graph. And this is where the slope formula comes into play. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video, you should go ahead and pause it just so you can see what the formula it is and how do you use it. So the slope formula is as follows. Slope is equal to the rise over the run, which is equal to the change in y over the change in x, which is equal to how much you go up or down over how much do you go over to the right, with what I previously explained. So same thing here. They give you 2 points. The first one is the coordinate of the first point. Second 2 numbers are the coordinate of the second point, and you plug them into the formula as follows. So we do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and that would give you the slope once you simplify. Now, the one thing I will say about this is that be careful because slope actually has negative signs in the formula. As you can see, there are 2 negative signs that are part of this formula. So don't forget about those negative signs, otherwise you're going to get the wrong answer once you simplify. Okay? So let's go over a couple of examples, and then I'll show you guys how it is actually useful when you're dealing with huge numbers. So let's say you want to find the slope between these 2 numbers, right? -3, -4, and 3, 1. Now, why did I pick these 2 numbers? Because we already did them in example number 1. As you can see from example number 1, we already did the same exact numbers, -3, -4, and then 3, 1. So we already know the answer. We know the answer should be 5 over 6 from the first example. But now we're going to do this with the formula to see if the formula actually works. So the slope formula says the following, right? Any 2 points, if you want to find the slope, is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And don't forget about the signs. So let's do that. Let's just pick which one's our first point, which one's our second point. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. I'm going to go with this one as my first one, and I'm going to go with this one as my second one. So the little 2 and the little 1 represents the second point or the first point that you're dealing with. As always, the first coordinate is the x, second coordinate is the y. So now if we plug it into the slope formula is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So once you plug in the corresponding points, in this case, the -4 would be the y1, so that goes here. The x1, or sorry, the y2 is right here. So that would correspond to this number here. Let's get a couple more colors going. X1 would be here, which corresponds to this number. And then, what color have I not used? Let's do this one. And then x2 is the 3, which corresponds to this number here. So all we're going to be doing is plugging in these values and simplifying our fraction. Now, be very careful, though. There are 2 negative signs in the middle. Those 2 negative signs are part of the formula. So I'm not even messing with anything else that's in the formula. Okay, so let's start with the first one, y2, which is the number of 1. So I'm going to put a 1 there. Y1 would be the value of -4. So I'm going to put a -4 here, but I'm going to put a parentheses around the -4 so I don't forget the negative sign. X2 is a +3. So I'm going to put on the bottom +3. And then X1 is that number in green, which is a -3. So I'm going to write it in green, -3. But since I have 2 negatives in front, I'm going to put a parentheses so I don't get confused. Okay, now that I have everything plugged into my formula, again, notice I have two negative signs, right? One for the formula, one for the actual numbers, y1 and x1. So be careful. Make sure you don't skip over those negative signs because they may mess you up when you're simplifying. Two negatives make a positive. So basically this becomes 1 plus 4, and then this becomes 3 plus 3. So the final answer for this is that my slope is going to be equal to 5 on top, 6 on the bottom, or positive 5 over 6, which is the exact same answer that we got up here when we did example number 1, right? So we know that the formula actually does work. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why am I even going to use a formula when I can just graph it? It's not going to be a big deal. Well, every now and then you get a number that is really, really big, and it is not as easy to graph. So I'll show you that one after this example. Let's just do another one real quick for comfort. So let's do this one as y1, y1, x1, y1, excuse me, and the next one as x2, y2. So when we plug it into the formula, the slope formula is going to be y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. That was on top. If you wanted to go back on the video and see the formula, it's always going to be the same. So when I plug my values in, I'm not going to use color this time because you guys can see where the numbers come from. So y2 is going to be the 0 minus, don't forget the minus from the sign, y1 is going to be the number 4. So I plug that in. Then I have x2. X2 is going to be a 4 again. And then subtract x1, which is going to be a negative 1. Again, be careful you have a negative sign for the formula, but you're also going to have a negative sign for the negative 1 that you just plugged in for x1. So once you plug it in, all you have to do now is simplify. On top, we're going to simplify this to be negative 4. On the bottom, we're going to simplify this to be 4 minus minus 1, which is 4 plus 1. And then the final answer for the slope is going to be negative 4 over 5. So my final answer is the slope is negative 4 over 5, where I go down 4 over 5. Okay. Now, the example that I was telling you guys about right now is, okay, so what if they give you this on a test? And they're like, okay, find the slope between 98 and negative 103 and 100 and negative 105. Are you honestly going to draw a graph and then count 103 squares up and then 104 squares to the side or whatever? You're going to be there all day and you're going to waste your time. So this is where the formula comes into play. If you have the option to use a formula and you have really big numbers, you're better off just using the formula because you have less of a chance of getting it wrong. So I'm going to do it the same way. X1, Y1 will be my first point, and then X2, Y2 would be my second point, and then I have to find the slope between these 2 points using the slope formula. So it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, as always. So let's plug in numbers. So y2 would be this big number, which is negative 105. No big deal. Once I know what to plug in where, then it shouldn't be a big deal. So negative 105 goes there. Minus, don't forget the minus for the formula, y1, which corresponds to this number, which is negative 103. So I'm going to put negative 103 here. Okay, so now I have these two numbers, the negative 105 and the negative 103. Now I have to plug in x2 and x1. So let me pick two different colors here. x2 would be 100. And then don't forget the minus from the formula. And then I'm going to plug in x1, which happens to be 98 in this case. So 98 would correspond to this number here. And then all I have to do is simplify. So even though they want us to find the slope of all these numbers that are really, really big out there, we could still do it using the slope formula. So remember, two negatives make a plus or a positive, right? So this will correspond to negative 105 plus 103, because there's a negative and negative next to each other right here, next to the 103. And then on the bottom, I have 100 minus 98. Well, that's easy, right? 100 minus 98 is just 2. So when we simplify this, negative 105 and positive 103, we have to subtract them because they have opposite signs. So therefore, I'm going to be actually left with negative 2 on top and then the 2 on the bottom. So my final answer would be negative 1. So the slope of these two crazy looking points is just down 1 over 1 or negative 1. Okay, hope this video was helpful. I'll see you guys in the next one.